You are listening to Journeys with Rebecca Radio with your host, Rebecca Jernigan, your tour guide into discoveries. Coming to you live simulcast from the heart of America to around the globe via the World Wide Web, terrestrial radio, satellite, and podcast. Let's journey together into the realms of the unknown to the known in search of enlightenment, knowledge, and truth.
Good evening. I am here in the heart of America, broadcasting live and heard on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, Studio B, and being simulcast on wolfspiritradio.com and also being heard at journeyswithrebecca.com. This is your host, Rebecca Jernigan, and you are listening to Journeys with Rebecca. Well, welcome to another Friday night. It is April 4th, 2014. Journeys with Rebecca live broadcast. Tonight's going to be another really good night. I have opted, or kind of a discussion was with JP last week with the Vatican and the thing that he calls the beast, or that I called the beast. I was on his show over the weekend, or Monday I guess it was, and we kind of continued the conversation. And he wanted to do another show, so we have JP back here tonight here in a little bit. And we're going to jump back into that rabbit hole again. We're also going to probably be taking this into some other directions. There's a few things that I kind of want to talk to everyone about tonight and share some information. So we'll get to that as well. But if you do have questions for JP or I, please do use the chat box, and you can find those at both stations at freedomslips.com or wolfspiritradio.com. Please put them in all caps, and then monitors will forward those questions to us during the show. And while you're there, remember to also understand that each of these radio stations are commercial free. They're listener supported, so please do use the donation button found at Wolf Spirit Radio or the site support button and at freedomslips.com. Every little bit helps keep everything going and keep it commercial free for everyone to enjoy. Please log on to my website. That's journeyswithrebecca.com. You can check out some of the information there, as well as sign up for the free newsletter that you get to in the upper right-hand corner. And don't forget to check out the new website, consciouscreations.com. That's Conscious Creations with a K on creations.com. And let's see, I think that's it for all of the standard stuff that I have to chat about. Let's see, I think we do have JP now with us. He was busy right up until airtime. JP, are you with us, dear?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were still muted or not.
Right, I'm going to turn off my speakers now.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, which is hard because I got wet hands. So I've just been in the kitchen making a nice cup of tea, ready for the show.
All right, he's got himself a cup of tea, folks. Who are all
then I realised my little milk jug it's a jug of yogurt. It's not milk anymore, so I had to go and change that. Perfect yogurt. I'll save it for later. Anyway, sorry about that. Oh. Always good to start off with a bit of brevity, of levity, because, I mean, when you go down the dark hole, we can guarantee some weirdness and some, new normal. Definitely a big dose of new normal.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard, that portion of it in the opening that I was talking about tonight. I want to take just a few minutes before we jump down the rabbit hole tonight. Cause I suspect it's going to take us in quite a few different directions based on, the energetics and just our past conversations in regards to this whole kind of topic that's gotten quite, intricate. I'll have to share some emails with all of you as well since the last shows, cause it's been kind of fun. But, I wanted to remind everybody that we truly are in the new normal. The new normal is that, nothing is as it was. Routines are not going to be the same. Habits are not going to be the same. Your taste for different foods are going to change. Sleeping patterns can be not only disrupted but non-existent off and on. You can be all of a sudden having different kinds of physical ailments or symptoms, allergies that never were there before, or allergies that you have are gone. We're all restructuring and changing. And especially those that do a lot of conscious energetic work, where they're working on themselves, they're trying to clear, they're trying to upgrade their consciousness, they're trying to release old patterns and habits. It's really accentuated during this year, and certainly in this kind of time frame that we've been in for the last few weeks, and for the next few weeks. It's really all about new beginnings and really expansion in a great many ways. So if you find yourself maybe not feeling real good, or feeling really good, having these waves of bursts of energies, whatever, and then all of a sudden you just don't have it anymore, just understand that your body is trying to find its balance and its balance point, its harmony point. It may not ever get that way to where it's going to be a repeatable pattern for you. I don't think that we're as a global race, I don't think we're ever going to go back to those times, what we call the good old days, where everything was very specific, where everybody was very routine and everything was clockwork and everything was always going to be expected on the outcome in accordance with the action you take. I don't think those days are here anymore. I think they've left the building firmly. And this is the new normal. The new normal is be prepared for anything, unpredictability, be kinder and gentler to yourselves as well as to each other. Realize that if you're having struggles, so is everyone else. If you're having challenges, probably so everybody else is as well. So if we can learn to be a little bit more compassionate, understanding with ourselves, and then take that and put that outwards as well towards others, truly we can create a way better environment, not only for ourselves, but certainly for others, and they in turn will do the same thing. And it can create a huge shift in this planet, for all of humanity, if we can just learn to do that, be kind to ourselves, and then as well as being kind to others, and to give ourselves a break and to give others a break as well. So I kind of wanted to share that because these last few weeks I've had a lot of clients, JP and audience, for those that are listening, that have spoken specifically about how things are different for them. This thing has changed, that thing has shifted. And, we've said all along that the change is going to happen, and you're going to be a part of it whether you're aware of it or not. So the people who are aware of it are conscious that things are not working the same. But we can't always look for the answers in the same place that we would have before to find them. We literally are wandering into new territories, at least in this time space in which we're all residing in at this moment. So we've got a lot of exploration yet to do out there. Certainly, I don't know that too many people have all of the answers. If in fact anybody has all the answers, I'm not sure that that's a possibility, other than the source of all that is. But we just have to remember that these times they have a change. They aren't changing. They're in the process of change, and we've been in that space for a while now. So, unpredictability is the new normal. Being able to be fluid, is a key word for everyone to remember, is to be, and always to stop, take a deep breath, when you get frustrated at yourselves or others, just realizing that everyone's having their challenges. So that being said, that was kind of my little soapbox I wanted to get on for a minute tonight, because so many people really are having a lot of difficulties right at this point, and I'm seeing it repetitively. Even myself, I'm having challenges through my day. There's many nights that I sleep very little, if any at all, and then there's other nights I go to sleep and it seems like I just close my eyes and I wake up and 7 hours have passed, and it's kind of an interesting phenomena for me specifically to do such a thing. But I want to share this little experience along with its sleep time. The other day, several days ago now, I had one of my nights the night before where I didn't sleep. And so usually about mid-afternoon I start getting a little sleepy, so I try to, just put my feet up and rest, not with the idea of going to sleep, but at least to rest for a little bit, kind of recoup my energy level. And as I'm laying there, something different happens. Usually when I go to, when I'm having those sleep time in the afternoon, it's usually what I call the between state. I'm really not asleep and I'm really not awake. So I hear what's going on around me, but I'm also in another kind of space and other things are going on as well. But in this case, it was a very odd thing. It was like I closed my eyes and everything behind my eyes went really, really black. I mean, that was all I saw was black. And my first thought was, wow, that's weird. I don't know that I've ever had this happen before in the middle of the afternoon like this, right? So I got this blackness in my eyes, behind my eyes, and then like a pulse of energy just went through me, just like this pulse of energy. And it was just like every nerve ending just came alive for a moment. And then it kind of dissipated. And I laid there for a minute and I was like, wow, I don't know what that was. That was kind of odd. That was really different. I wonder what that energy was. And so as I was trying to look at the signature, I decided, well, I'm going to turn over on my other side here. So I flipped over to my other side. Again, I closed my eyes, and then that blackness returned again. Here's another pulse of energy that comes in, does the same thing. So I turned around, laid on my back for a minute, and I thought, I have no idea what this is. And so I laid there for probably about another 30 minutes in observation mode to see, well, what was that? Where did that come from? Was it good? Was it not good? What was happening? And I still don't have an answer yet, but I can tell you that some things have shifted. I wish I could be more specific and tell you what it is that shifted. I don't know what has, but I'm not so sure that I wasn't dive bombed with something. I don't know. It was just a very interesting afternoon that I spent a couple of days ago. And I've just kind of been in a very odd space since then,
Well,
it's just been different.
Yep, there's stuff going on, as we know.
You're saying that very nicely, by the way.
Stuff going down. Yeah, but we've just been hit by this massive solar flare. In fact, two of them. Two went off, and we caught the tail of one and the full brunt of another, one after the other. And 9 p.m. this evening, or just past, so what time is it now? It's past 1, so it's about 5 hours ago, we were hit by the predicted front of the first wave, of the big wave, I mean. This is solar flare, coronal mass ejection stuff, which is all kinds of stuff, and the sun is changing its nature because of what it's getting from the galaxy. And the galaxy's also getting a zap as well. And you hear about this G2, Sagittarius G2 is being hit by an intergalactic wave, which is presumably a similar thing to what's going on just a larger still scale. So it's like, this is one of these big moments. This is like such a big moment. And this is why they couldn't say how big this moment is, because it would just freak us out. But this is the point. It's like every single clock is lining up at midnight.
Well, and so let's take that out a step further there. We've got all this astrological stuff coming up over the next few weeks. We've got the eclipse before the Grand Cross and another eclipse after the Grand Cross. This Grand Cross is a very unusual Grand Cross, even more so than most. We also have something else that is also happening in this month, plus these solar flares. And I did hear about these solar flares. And, I don't do a whole lot of research on things like that. But I did hear about them, that we were going to get the tail end of it. So, and I did hear about the other planets. Wasn't it Jupiter was it Jupiter that was showing signs of something because of this wave from the sun? or the activity out in the solar system. I think it was Jupiter. Am I thinking of Jupiter or Saturn?
I've not heard that.
Well, I did.
See if anybody's listening. Yeah, okay. Yeah, what have you heard?
Only that that something was changing because of the energetics in the galaxy changing, whether it was from the sun or the activity from the sun, but it was creating some changes that was observable either on Jupiter or Saturn. I can't remember which one of those two it was.
Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah, visible changes on the top of the planet there. So I was like, wow, here we are. We're in it. We're full-fledged in it.
There we go. So that actually kind of confirms the fact that we've been hit by the galactic wave, or at least our solar system is being impinged by it. And so to imagine, if you're not aware of, if you've never heard me or Rebecca or Tracy banging on about this, this is a wave of conscious living plasma energy that emanates from the center of the being that is the galaxy that we live in, and it ripples out from the center. And from our perspective, it looks like a ribbon because it's just coming straight at us, flat on. And we're in this moment. You know, when you have an eclipse, it means that you're flat on Earth, Moon, Sun. You're directly in a square alignment. Most of the time you get an alignment, they're not exact. They're not, you know, there's a bit up or a bit down. It's never quite. But these are flat on. There's, you know, there's a horizontal line that goes through the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and the galaxy and all this stuff. And then we've got, as you say, the Grand Cross, which is this pulling apart. Really what it feels like to me is it's like we have to pass through a very small gap. And the only way we can do it was we stretch our arms out and go in like a cross. We look like a cross. So you have to be completely bare, and you just squeeze in. You know, you lift your arms up, your head goes through. You know, it's a cross-shaped hole that we have to move through, kind of thing. And the only thing that will do it is a naked person. You know, it's like we have to be completely glamour-free, ego-free, all that, or we'll be pulled one side or the other. That's the kind of feeling that I'm getting from it. It's
game changing. It's game changing for sure. I mean, I think this whole year is a game changer. And, you know, when we look at these energetics, you know, it's pulling apart literally and pushing, if you will, pushing and pulling apart the very fabric of what we have said is our reality. And I think that was what the Elohim had intimated at all those years ago, was that the construct couldn't stay. It was never meant to, because it knew that it had a lifespan, as it were, and it's not going to hold up to these energetics that's happening out there in the galaxy. I mean, they did not know, whoever had created this false matrix, so to speak, around the Earth, the construct, that they did not know what these energetics were going to do exactly. They did not know what the result was of the Earth moving through this field of energetics, and certainly the Sun and its CMEs and all of that that's going on, as well as everything else. I mean, there was too many unknowables in the process. So here we are. I think it's literally pulling at the fabric of the illusion of who we are, what we've been. And matter of fact, I made a statement to Sherry this evening. I said, I hope I live long enough in this life cycle to learn the truth about all the history of this planet and, where everything really comes from, the real truth of all of it. And I hope I do. I mean, I know some, but I don't know enough of it to be satisfied with the answers, that there isn't more for me to dig out and to look at for sure. I mean, I don't even think I've touched the tip of an iceberg with the information that I've gotten, right? So in this whole idea of pulling apart everything is again causing people to stretch. They have to stretch their consciousness, just what you were talking about. So metaphorically, energetically, spiritually, all of those things, as we're moving through this, that's what we're being asked to do, is to stretch beyond the boundaries of what has been our normal, because we're trying to create something different, something better for all of humanity, that works for all of humanity, not just for the few.
And the word that comes from the same root as stretch is stress. And that is stress is when you resist the stretching. It's like you can stretch two ways. You can like jerk the stretch, and that's when muscles get torn, or you can allow the stretch to happen using breathing, like yoga does, and you can actually allow your body to expand its way. So there are, there's different ways of approaching it, and I suppose what I'm recommending is to whatever's gonna happen in the next 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, don't resist it. Just allow it. In a way, cultivate it. Bring it on. Allow it to play out, because it's a bit like, you've eaten the bad prawn. You know that if you hold it in your body, you can get really ill. But if you let it go, you can just get away with a little bit. So you have to allow that purging to happen, and you do it encouragingly. So whatever you can, whatever's going to happen in the next few weeks is going to be your personal version of the Grand Cross. I can't say how it's going to be for everybody, but there will be some form of stretching. It may be involving some kind of being able to accept something that you previously found unacceptable. And that can go as far as, my God, my husband just killed somebody, oh, well, he must have had a reason for it. So, but, being able to, it's compassion, because you have to stretch your compassion, because the only way to heaven is through compassion. Compassion means having an open heart. It's the same effect as having an open heart center is the effect of compassion. This is why the Buddhists teach it, because it's the way to enlightenment. That is it. You become harmless. Understanding magic and all of these things and all these procedures, that's really not important. That's the kind of the how. But the what is harmlessness, because the universe is very, very malleable, and we can mold the universe with our minds. If anybody was listening to Sean's show just now, we were talking about radionics. If you can manifest instantly, if you had a machine like he was talking about, where you can put a wish into it and these wishes come true, if, say, the universe actually didn't need a machine anymore, and somehow about the universe it was more active in that way, magnetizable by our thoughts, and more and more and quicker our thoughts become manifest, then you have to be really, really, really careful, because karma will slap you straight back in the face, because the faster you manifest, the faster karma will manifest for you. So you might be able to manifest as an ice cream, but then you drop the ice cream and then you'll manifest a rainstorm. It'll just be like that. Everything will echo what's going on inside you, which is a difficult place to be. It's like monkey's paw. You have to actually practice getting your intention right and being harmless and not interfering with other people's lives and things and people and places. Just stop interfering with things. The human race would be a lot better off if they just did that one simple thing: stop interfering with things. Stop, what's this button? Anyway, I have to say that I'm guilty of that myself. But anyway, so yeah, be harmless is the key to this whole thing. If there's a fight, stop it. Don't join in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sorry, I call you mid-text message.
No, it's all good. I was actually responding to somebody in the chat box. They had sent in a couple of questions and we hadn't gotten to them yet, the questions. which was part of the topic that we were going to be discussing tonight. And we are going to be getting to that. So please take a deep breath, Yellowbird. We'll be answering them, I promise. And, we'll get to it. But I wanted to, before I kind of as a segue over into moving into a different, or moving back into the original topic, is I wanted to talk about some of the emails that I got because they kind of tie in with, some of the questions that we did get from Yellowbird tonight.
Really? People have actually responded to our conversation?
I've gotten a lot of emails, yes. I just, people really just making statements. There was no questions in them, other than who do you, or what species do you think it is, that's down there in the Vatican. Somebody said, well, it sounds like a lot like from the movie, in the 1950s, I think it was called The Blob or something like that. It's an organic creature. And, so I've been getting, I bet you I got close to a dozen emails in about people just giving their view of what they thought this creature was. So there's many people trying to tune into this creature that's down there, in the Vatican. I think that this is fascinating to me, how many people are just as curious about it, as they are. I mean, I was really, really surprised about that. So again, I just kind of want to reiterate to everyone is that, to me, this creature that's there, is an extremely intelligent creature. It is all by itself. This is of course my opinion. It's here by itself. There is no other, there's not another one of its kind that resides upon or in this planet. It has a hierarchy that it has to respond to. It is not a great race of there's not a lot of them left. Their numbers are not very high as far as a species is concerned. They're doing a job. It's doing a job, not they. It's doing a job, whatever its job was, which is to send out these tentacles of energetic signals and kind of be a conduit. In my opinion, that's how I've always seen it. And we kind of discovered that together on the first show that we did on this topic a few weeks ago. And how one of the visions tied into the other visions because they were separate, visions from, times apart. They didn't necessarily flow together. But if you are having visions or dreams, and I tell people this, please write it down because you don't know where your storyline is going to pick itself back up again. You should be able to find some of that information as you go through your book or your journal or whatever it is that you may be keeping. So that being said, let's answer the first question. I'll see if I can get that out here. Question about, what are the gray Jesuits doing in the Vatican and what type of species is the beast? Well, I'll answer the last question first. I don't know what the specific name is of this creature. All I can do is identify how it felt to me, what it looked like to me, what it was doing, what its energetics were, and, kind of where it resided within the Vatican. I cannot tell you what the name of the species is. I don't really want to get up any closer to it to follow that timeline to figure out where it comes from because for me that's just too much information. It's an uncomfortable space for me to go into to travel that way. And JP, what do you know about the gray Jesuits?
Don't know. The Jesuits is obviously a very secretive organization, and anything you might want to know about them is probably going to be a lie. However, we've seen this thing that the Jesuits... Oh, yeah, there was one thing that I heard, which was that the Jesuits were an organization that was created by the Zionists, the Cabal, back in the day, in order to it's a subversive organization that was created to subvert itself. However, I don't know. I mean, it's like these multiple wheels within wheels kind of intelligence organizations. I think essentially the Jesuits are like the Roman Empire's CIA that has managed to survive until now.
Well, and I don't know anything about the Grey Jesuits being there, except for when I read the question, I sensed their presence there, but I don't know what they're doing there. So unfortunately, Yellowbird, I can't answer that because I don't really know what they're doing there. It would be something I'd have to actually sit with. If I get an answer for that before the end of the show, I certainly will come back to it. Now that I've posed the question, sometimes that stuff will come in arbitrarily while I'm sitting here. So let's move on to the next question. Yellowbird has many questions here for us tonight. Is there a secret pope, and who is he or it? JP, what do you think of that question?
Secret pope. All right. So, well, I don't know.
Some people I think might be calling him the dark pope or the black pope.
Well, there used to be this being called the black pope, right? And the black pope was the head of the Jesuits, and the white pope was the front guy, and the black pope being the head of the Jesuits. Okay, so who are the Jesuits? The Jesuit is essentially a military organization, and I would say that it was the skeletal remains of the Roman Empire, taking on new cladding, new skins, but essentially being the same intention behind the Roman Empire of having total control over everything kind of thing. And so that organization very much mirrors this creature, Albert, that has been the subject of our conversations over the last thing. So I think essentially this being is like what the Jesuits are springing out of. It feels very much like their action is the same action as this, which is to infiltrate and subvert.
I agree. I agree with that. So do you believe there still is a secret pope?
Well, okay, so what it used to be, there used to be Hans-Peter Kolbenbach, or Clovenhoof, as they used to call him, who was the Jesuit pope, the Black Pope. And he retired about the same time as Pope Benedict. And then suddenly there was this new guy who's a white pope, but he's also a Jesuit. But does that mean that he's the Black Pope as well? I don't know. It's a secretive organization. Anybody out there got in? Oh, the Black Ooze. Yes.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, we'll talk about ooze later.
We've got a couple more questions here first that we want to get to. So, is there a secret pope? And again, I think maybe it might be the idea behind the Black Pope, White Pope story that JP was saying, maybe Yellowbird, that you might be actually speaking of. But I have to tell you, there was a show that I did with, I wish I could remember. It's been, oh my goodness, I bet you it's been 5-6 years ago. I wish I could remember who it was. But anyway, it was somebody who had written a book about it. And she had brought up the idea behind the Black Pope, and the secret organization and all of that stuff. But it's been so many years ago, I don't remember who it was now. I just remember having this conversation on air with a female. And she believes that there's a lot of beliefs that this woman has. And one of them is that, yes, there was a secret pope. She doesn't give any verifiable proof or anything. What she does is she gives a set of circumstances in her books, that one could, certainly, garner it together to make it seem like there was a secret pope and or a black pope and the white pope and all of that stuff and an antichrist and all of this, but she gives no proof or evidence of it. It's simply supposition about research that she's done and put it together. So my verdict has never been that. I think that to me that seems too singularly minded, that there is a secret pope. I think there's a whole secret organization behind the pope. Not just one, but several at least. They have to take their orders from somewhere too. Please believe me when I tell you that. Is it this beast that's down there? I don't know. It could be. We'll get to that one in a minute. Remember that one, JP, and we'll go back to that one. But we're going to move on to the next question about this. Have you, JWR, ever heard that there are underground bases in Asheville, North Carolina, controlled by the NWR? There are underground bases in North Carolina. Who they're controlled by is not necessarily NWR. The New World Order, a lot of people, it might be New World Religion, because you've said NWR, are putting specific labels on who might be controlling these bases. And I will tell you, there's some of these bases that even the military and the New World Order people don't have access to. They're not all controlled by the same thing, same organization, same set of circumstances. They don't all have the same purposes. So I actually sense several of them there, very deep, by the way, underground. And they move in towards, obviously in towards, not north or south, but in towards the continent in the United States. They don't move in a north and south direction. I mean, generally speaking. And there's a couple of them, by the way, that follow some kind of an energetic ley line, or meridian, if you will. So that might be something for you to kind of go into and maybe do some research on the longitude and latitude of those areas that you suspect, and then follow the one that moves east to west and see if that kind of lines up or scopes out with how you feel about what that is that's going on. JP, anything else that you want to say about that before I move to the next question?
Caverns? Maybe I'll talk a little. I'll talk a little bit about caverns later. Okay. But bases in Carolina, there's bases everywhere. I mean, we're not talking less than 100. There's more than several hundred bases all over the world. They've been made by exploding nuclear weapons. There are caverns under this what's the word? The crust. It's not just magma down there. It's like long story. All right, the planet expands as the planet expands. The radius of the curvature of the continental plates are curved, such that when the planet expands, it goes on a smaller curve, which means that these things ruckle up. It's a bit like your knuckle. You know, when you bend your finger, it's straight. When you straighten your finger, it kind of ruckles up. That's what mountains do. And so you get a layer that goes up, and then there's a gap, and then there's a layer at the bottom, layer underneath it. So whenever there's a kind of ruckle up, there's caves formed underneath it. And so wherever there's mountains, there's going to be caves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some are still yet, believe it or not, undiscovered.
And imagine how big Himalayas.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if it's the biggest up, then there's a big hole underneath.
Yeah, somewhere. Maybe several places, right? Yeah.
That's right.
The underground bases are always fascinating to me because...
Yeah, but I know I'm not from NC. Okay.
Yeah, me either. But I have been over there. So, I've been to Asheville, North Carolina, actually, and did a little bit of mountain exploration there. And there are a lot of caves and underground bases and things in that nature there. There definitely is. So, who owns them is varied as much as it is that there's this many people listening to the call, pretty much, you know. Well, let's say, put it this way, claims ownership of them. They don't really own them. They claim ownership. Okay. The next one here is also from Yellowbird. And he says, do you think that, JWR, the beast, got his feelings hurt when you and Rebecca and JP, well, I am JWR and Rebecca, so anyway, just so you know, we're making fun of his appearance on the last show. I don't know that it cares. It doesn't have the same, you're giving it a human expression when it is not human. I think we talked a lot about that, over the last two shows about the nature of this creature. We have a tendency to humanize everything, to put it into human terms of our understanding or when we're talking about it. And it is not of human origin. It is not a human being. It does not experience emotions or thoughts or even processes like a human being does. It is an entirely different species. I don't know that we were actually making fun of it. We were trying to describe it. I know I wasn't making fun of it. That's not something I generally do, is make fun of things. But I was trying to describe it in the best way that I could with what it was that I was viewing, sensing, and seeing. So, to answer your question, I don't think that the beast, what do you call him again? JP, what's your name for him again? Albert, would really comprehend, my description of him as anything other than neutral at worst, I would think, and best.
Yeah. Well, we were talking last week that it's basically received a program. It's got an agenda, and it's presumably from its own people, and that it's how can I say this? It's like an intelligent machine, like Siri. You know, if you got an iPhone, you got this Siri thing, it appears to be intelligent. It appears to make intelligent responses. Except whenever I ask it any questions, it can never answer right. But if you were to scale that up a few thousand years of technological development and then build a genetic one that works through, it's a kind of neural. I suppose one way you could describe it, it's like a huge bag of brain cells that create a huge supercomputer that works on the psychic plane. It doesn't work on the physical plane, but it works on the psychic plane and creates the construction in our minds somehow. I'm not quite tuned into it. Anyway, but in terms of its personality, what we discovered last week, the first thing we discovered that it only does, it's not interested in something that is curious. If something is fearful, it's food. If something is angry or aggressive, it will destroy. It's like that. It's just really, really simple programs. It's like got this kind of lasers or whatever, a psychic equivalent of. But it's a very powerful, but it's kind of weak in its own blobbiness. It just can't wander around and do things. Can't hang out like us. What do you think?
No, it's pretty relegated to a very small area of movement. But again, I want to be very clear that it does have movement. It is able to move. It just doesn't move like we do or like our animals do on this planet either, or insects or any of that. It doesn't have that same ability of movement in the same way. And I think psychic is a real good terminology to use. It works off of a high level of intuitiveness as well as a high level of intelligence, and a lot more knowledge of how things work on the higher dimensional aspects, certainly beyond our current scientific, at least to the layman, our scientific technology is concerned. So it has a whole different way of operating. So again, we're trying to describe a non-human entity without trying to pigeonhole it into a human being, because it is not. It's a creature all in of itself. It's a species all in of itself.
Yeah, it's a being, but it's not human.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I'm hoping that Yellowbird that this has answered some of those questions. Now we also have another one from Sam, is asking if Albert, the beast, is responsible for the black ooze so many encounter in the astral and spirit realm. And I I'd like to answer that if I could, JP. When I read the question here a few minutes ago, here was the answer that I got. That black ooze that many people encounter is kind of waste matter, as it was, and it does not come from Albert. And if you were to look at these different blobs or whatever they are of this ooze that people are encountering in the astral and spirit realm, they will recognize that the substance of it is different. Each of them is a little different and unique because it's waste matter. And I don't mean it's body waste matter. It is, it could be the purging of junk. It could be the collective accumulation of junk, very much like our trash heaps. When they take our trash, they keep building it up until it becomes this big area, and they start with a little bit over here and a little bit there, and pretty soon they just keep adding it and keeps building, and pretty soon now you've got one piece instead of 4 little piles, you've got one big pile. So the black ooze is waste matter for the most part. Now, I also have a little disclaimer here with this that they're asking me to share, is that there is some creatures, some entities out there that resemble what some people are calling this black ooze, but they are a consciousness. But they should not look or appear or react the same as this that you're talking to me about, Sam, which is the black ooze. And no, Albert is not responsible for any of that people run into. But that was a good question. JP, what's your feelings on that?
Black ooze. Comes from the beginning of the Sands of Time. Sean David Morton, when they first did the first teleport, back in the 40s, yes, the guy, one of the operatives ran in through the beam, and when he came out the other side, which is like about 10 minutes later, he's like, cross this 10 paces. It took him minutes to get across, because of the time dilation and distortion. He came out covered in a jelly kind of like substance that evaporated into nothingness. It's like a cold, wet jelly, which, some people call ectoplasm. And I'm not sure if this is the same stuff that, Sam is talking about. But,
Sam said he was talking about the conscious blob ones.
The black ooze so many encounter in the astral spirit realm. All right.
And then over here, if you look over into the chat box, he's saying I was talking about the conscious blob ones, the ones that I said. Some of them I said it was like waste matter in a sense. And I said then there's those that are these little blobs that are really their own little species or consciousness.
Well, here's what I get is that, people do black magic rituals.
No, they do
Right.
not, JP.
Right, that's what's left over. That's what it creates. It creates this icky, oozy stuff, and it blocks the flow in the ley lines. Yeah. It's, when you say waste, it's not quite, normal waste. It's like industrial waste from satanic ritual,
right.
It's fear and, all this gook, all the negative feelings, what do they call it? The Golgotha, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not.
Anyway, but there's this other black ooze. There's several black oozes, actually. There's one black ooze that they created in a lab, which is a kind of nanobot technology.
Yeah.
And of course that didn't work. So they flushed it down the toilet. What a great idea.
Hey!
How very, very clever.
Hey! That's scientific there.
That's what scientists do. They flush it down the bog. Anyway, so what happened was...
Oh my God, now we got nanobots floating in our sewage water. Good job, dudes.
All over London and evaporating in these places. If you want any more details on that, it's one of the bases, and I think it's number 22 or 23. And it's kind of called the black oil or something like that. They call it the intelligent oil, and it featured in the X-Files. It was one of these things. You remember to see the guy and you see his eye and this black oil covers over and it slips past, and it's like taken over his body. That's what it does. It takes over your body. It's like a GMO nanobot thing.
I must have missed that particular episode of the X-Files. I didn't think I missed any of them.
All right. Well, remember the submarine? There was one that was on the submarine, and the guy bent down and picked up a stick, and on the end of the stick was this oil that kind of gloobled in some sort of slightly intelligent-looking way. That's the
I missed that one.
Yeah, it's a long time, but anyway, so there was the black oil there, and then there's this other thing that they call Cynthia, that they dumped a whole load of into the Gulf of Mexico, alongside that other stuff, core exit. So probably they've got something alchemical cooking, they're trying to cook a monster or something down there. I don't know what's going on. But it's a kind of intelligent nanobot. And Cynthia is based on, now if I remember her name, I think it's Cynthia Brewer. She claims to be the originator of the DNA. She claims to be lots of DNA sources of things because of her bloodline or whatever. Anyway, so she's been interviewed by Eva Moore and Kerry, but she sounds crazy. I mean, she's like, but I don't know.
She might be after all of this.
She might be, and yeah, this stuff might drive you crazy. They said she said she was. They were growing a chimera, a little thing inside her body. Using it as what's the word? Like an incubator.
Good job.
Yeah, I remember Atlantis, don't you?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Holy crap! Why can't you just see? That's not being harmless. That is the opposite of being harmless.
No, that's exactly right.
That's freaking about.
Yeah. That's causing major harm. That's causing major harm. But look, I want to get back to the black blobs that are the little ooze that is floating around in the astral realm or spirit realm. That's where everything that comes in and goes out, its arrival and exit point is through the astral. Thoughts, actions, magic, deeds, conscious awareness, meditations, loving thoughts, hateful thoughts, whatever, all go up into the astral. What you dream about, those things that have a consciousness that come into this planet or trying to come into, they have to go through the astral realm. So there's a lot of things that are deposited that don't make it back in or out, or they're just kind of stuck there floating until they find, pop in one side or back out the other, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of debris in there. So when you're in the astral moving about, you have to use a lot of heightened senses when you're moving about the astral, if you're doing it in a conscious way, because there are many things that mimic other things. In other words, they look like that, they sound like that, but if you have your intuition tuned enough, you can decipher that it really isn't that. It's just a form, a look or whatever, that something else takes on, so that it can do whatever it's there to do, whether it be good, bad, to hide itself, to, maybe it's a fear and it doesn't want to be seen. There's all kinds of things that happen in the astral. It's just too numerous to even go to. So that's a subject that could be talked about for a month, in my opinion, is the astral. To pick it apart and to look at it, how it functions, what happens there, what doesn't happen there. So I would tell you is that you when you're out there looking at those little black blob things, those black ooze, is to get a sense of what is its purpose, what's its objective. If it's not just the waste matter that I was talking about, it will respond to a thought that you have, something that you're telepathically looking at it going, gee, I wonder if that's a good thing or a bad thing as you're looking at it. If it is a consciousness, it will begin to move or to respond in some way, that you should be able to see it, feel it, or sense it on some level, that it's not just the waste matter, because waste matter will just kind of be there. It's just a blob. It really, truly is. Each one has to be individually recognized for what it is. You would not stand yourself in a room with 20 other people and have somebody else come in and look at all of you and say, well, you're all the same, because you're not. And neither is those those black oozes out there or any other being. They're all individual. They all have individual ideas or thoughts or processes or motivations or whatever, just like the 20 people in the room. They will all have a different viewpoint or perspective, a personality, energetic field, etc., and so forth. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense for you, Sam, in response to all of that. So getting back to, want to get back to Albert for a few more minutes. Well, wait a minute. Are we going to have a break tonight? Do you know, Dave? I'm always in that state of awareness that we're getting close to the top of the hour. We haven't had one. So I don't know if he's got that fixed or not. And I don't know if you know who that might be, or if you've talked to him to see if he's fixed that.
Well, I did speak to Mike about some of the jingles that I was in this week. So, well, we'll see what happens.
Okay.
It should be coming up any minute now, if not. Right, okay, we've got more from Yellowbird. She's an excitable little bird, isn't she? All right. It's like jumping up and down, asking questions. Why didn't you tell us something about you? All right, so here's the thing. Sam Squatch was talking about right, he says, right, the waste part is like liquid tar, whereas the conscious blobs are more gelatinous and oily. But I'll let you move on. We're all stuck in a huge quagmire of sticky tar and black stuff. So, Albert. All right. So, yeah, Albert, we're talking about... Oh, Tracy, have you not been listening to us? We're talking about the creature that lives way down below the Vatican. Down, really down. Down in the kind of... the natural caves that occur under hills. And, I think that it's been buried, I don't know how long it's been there. Did you have I mean, you say it's a long, long time, but I mean, are we talking hundreds of thousands of years, dozens of thousands of years, thousands of years, hundreds of years? You got any idea, Rebecca?
Dozens of thousands anyway. It has been moved, from another spot, to the Vatican. It's been moved where it's been needed to do the job that it was set out to do, that it was programmed. And Tracy, to get you caught up, is Albert is the name that JP has given to the thing that I call the beast that lives underneath the Vatican. Last week's show we talked a lot about it. And was it Monday I was on your show?
I've been talking about
yeah, but I mean, I was on your show Monday and we talked some more about it. And, so there's a couple of shows out there that really has a lot of information. Plus JP's had other people on and he's been on other shows, talking about this thing with the Vatican and this beast, AKA Albert.
Yeah. So, cause what we wanted to do is create a kind of, a friendly name so that you wouldn't approach the thought of this creature with fear. Because it eats fear and it responds to aggression. And so the approach that I've taken with it, because last week I was saying nuclear warfare, but this week I had a good conversation with Eva and she set me straight even more, after her show, as we were talking about it, she set me straight like, look, we're all part of the one. You have to use your potentiality to move it by seeing what it is in yourself. So go inside it, ask what it wants, feel it, and we walked in, we went in with open hearts and we walked straight in. He was obviously lonely. He wanted people to love him, and obviously being a rather unattractive creature, nobody did. So he took love in the form of chi by basically eating people's energy out of them. That's what I believe is the beginnings of the sacrifice. Well, maybe that's one aspect of sacrifice, is that, in order to feed this beast, that people, children, virgins are children, by the way, virgins are sacrificed, children are sacrificed to it, because he wants love and he can't get it, so he takes it, and he can, and he takes it because he can. He seemed to be kind of becoming aware of it, becoming tired of the whole thing. He's coming to the end of his life. And really what he wanted to do was just kind of dissolve in some way, just become atmosphere and go and be just, I don't know, just be a nice guy for a change. He didn't like playing the bad guy. So we helped him kind of release a little bit. I don't know if it's made any difference, but it's been it's a turbulent time. You can't tell what's what, but it might be interesting to watch the Vatican and see if anything comes out that would indicate. I've asked for 3 signs because I'm tough like that.
Well, that was, I'm not sure I agree with all of that, but I will tell you is that there, the work that anyone does on a metaphysical, through your visions, through that work that you guys did in the energetic work, it will always show up somewhere in the physicality, if you're paying attention. Most people are waiting for, some big announcement. Well, I don't know that you're going to get a big announcement, but you'll get something that will tell you that something has shifted. Yes, you'll get something. Yeah, you'll get it. You'll hear about it. It happens. That is the way the universe works. And you just do the work, and then you move forward through your day, and that which you have done will show itself in the physicality of what you call your physicality of reality. It will. It shows up. If the target that you had, whatever that target is, and I don't mean that in a negative, I mean, your focus, we'll use that word instead. Whatever you were focused on, whatever you were putting all of your energy and everything into, if it was for universal reasons, something that is supposed to change will change. Now, the beast being who it is, and as long as it's been established here, I'm not sure knows about the term choice. Again, we have a tendency to humanize something that is not human. Doesn't think the way that we think, doesn't look at things the way that we look at, doesn't feel what we feel, on any level of us at all. They're very different species, this beast creature thing. That doesn't make him good or bad. It makes him a different species. And what he's doing here as a job. I want to keep reiterating that because people want to demonize this guy. And yes, it's been extremely harmful to the human. But on the other side of this, we have to look at who's in the Vatican. Who is in the Vatican? There are human beings in the Vatican that know very well that communicate with this thing, and this thing communicates with the humans in whatever way that they have learned how to do that. And the human beings are the ones that are ultimately making the choice to feed this thing or to let this thing grow or whatever the case may be. So it's not just the beast that's sitting down there doing all this to humanity, it's the other humans that are also part of this, because somewhere they feel like that they've got power, control, reward for this, something. I don't know what's at the end of their rainbow with that.
You know what? What has come to me over this last week is It's not one creature. It's a whole bloody zoo down there, right? And what they've also found a whole bunch of these elongated skulls down there.
Yeah.
So that's one of the places where they hang out. And they have various levels of these caverns that they exist in. You know, maybe they dress in suits, have very modern facilities, you know, maybe it just looks like up here, just without any windows. And they do their thing, and they seem to be dictating what's going on up here, and they don't really care about us. It's more like they're like in the little building next to the barn on a farm. And there's, you know, they're doing their deals with whoever they do deals with, you know, Alpha Centauri or Bootes 5 or, you know, Alpha Draconis 6. Whoever they may be, you know, dealing with at the time, you know, that's coming through their communications channels. And very little to do with us.
Well, yeah, and, you know, I mean, now we're getting into a whole other can of worms here, JP, doing that.
A can of bloody coneheads.
Yeah, the whole, the whole elongated head. Let's get into, I want to answer Yellowbird's next question that he posted. Who is responsible for all the occult, monarch, mind control, abuse programs? Well, there is no specific individual that you can point your finger at, because everybody who's involved in it, Yellowbird, in my opinion, is responsible for it. You can have somebody that builds something, but if nobody takes advantage of it, then it's just one person's deal. But if somebody creates something and other people step into it and work with and utilize it, then they too are a part of it. They're just as guilty as the person who invented it, so to speak. This mind control, what you're talking about, the monarch mind control, is a very specific thing of mind control, and if I'm assuming you got that from Stuart Swerdlow's work. So I would suggest really going back into Stuart's work in regards to the monarch mind control. I think he was talking about the Montauk Project, and a lot of this was established. Obviously, these programs were established before Stewart was involved in them. I don't know if the Monarch one specifically was or was not, or if that was after he was at Montauk. But I would tell you that your best source for the specific mind control programs would be going and looking at Stewart's work, and then there's some other people who have also been part of Montauk, who have also come out with some things, and unfortunately their names elude me at the moment. But that would be my suggestion in regards to that question. Any comments on that, JP?
Yeah, the name you're looking for is Fritz Springmeier. He's the guy. If you're interested in this kind of thing, I mean, we don't really want to go down that road. We've been down that road. We've interviewed many people who have been through it, who have had something to do with it. It's not necessarily unproductive, but we've been there, and it's all in Rebecca's archives. This little fellow is. See, here's the thing. This thing does not want you to know about it. This thing does everything it can to distract your attention away from it. So, why are you asking these questions unless you're following its agenda? Let's focus on it. There were creatures. There have been several science fiction films like this. You look at it, you remember, oh my God, I remember this thing. And you look away, and everything's normal again. And you don't remember what just happened. It's very much like what they say when you're being possessed by a demon, that you don't remember what happened because you've been swapped out. You're somewhere else. So, back to Albert. Down.
Albert and the Vatican. This thing has been there for so long. I'm not even sure if it remembers where its home is at. Again, I can't stress enough to people. I need to make sure that people really understand this. He is here to do a job. He was sent here to do a job. I think he was, what was the word I used last week for that, JP?
It's like stationed or something, installed.
Installed, but again, it wasn't so much of a choice as it was an outcome. The field of the talking heads is all wrapped into that. And, I originally think, and I'm going to tell you this, I know it's going to sound bizarre, but I originally think that he was actually centered at one of the poles, either the North Pole or the South Pole. That's where I think he originally was, and then he was moved, and I call it a he, but it's actually both a he and a she, I believe. It was moved to, the space where it now occupies because of the energetics that run there, and what has happened, on that land that was way, way beyond our remembrance in history, and the energies kind of helped to feed this thing for a while, until, humanity, got to be greater in numbers. But it's that particular site that the Vatican rests on. And I think all of you have probably heard many of this stuff before. But the actual physical location of the Vatican, it is the site of many, 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 rituals and sacrifices and battles and, monstrosities, have been, completed there. Ritual sacrifices, etc. and so forth, children, men and women, by the way. There are such a thing as men virgins as well. So it's not all been about the female, but, I would say 80-20, 85-20, 85% female to 20 to 15% male. Adults have been sacrificed, and children too numerous to mention, that has occurred on this site. And they started occurring even more so after this creature was installed in that area, because it actually enhanced that because of its telepathic nature, because of its energetic nature, because of its job that it was here to do. It's just simply a transmitter of and a coercer of information and energetics, because that's what it knows. That's what it is. That's what it's doing. What it was specified to do within its species. Does it know that it's causing harm? Originally, I don't think it understood any of that. But I think through the years that perhaps there was enough interaction with the humans, the true humans, not the ones that are that look like humans but really aren't. Well, that gets into the elongated head thing.
Well, and all the other things that are here. Right. We've got to just keep finish your thread.
Anyway, so, he's, it has just been here it just feels like it's almost like a fixture, That's what he feels like to me. And, he's had to have some defense mechanisms. However, there has not been, up until fairly recently, and I'm going to say recently within the last few thousand years, anything that it really needed to be concerned with harming it, right? It didn't have any predators, okay? Until fairly recently, and now there are many predators, because there's a higher in number. When you stop to think about all the people that have, go there and look at the Vatican, and they have seen this thing through the years, and then they talk about it, just like we did on this radio show. Now everybody's in there looking at him. You think that this thing isn't bombarded? I think, over the last week, it's been bombarded with, things trying to come into its house, right? Into its energetic field. And to me, that makes it feel like to him that he is now the hunted instead of the hunter in that sense. In some sense, I don't feel him being fearful, but it's more of a, well, what is this? Almost like a lack of understanding of incoming as opposed to him just spewing out all the time. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, the world has changed around Albert.
Yes.
And Albert is experiencing a different energy.
Yes.
And that's causing him distress as well. I mean, aside from being tired and worn out, and I get the feeling that he didn't start out so huge, but
that's correct.
That he's grown over the years.
That's correct.
And become deformed, and well, not deformed, but just kind of unformed. He's lost his form. It's like the guy who's just eaten too many McDonald's. Man.
Yeah.
He likes his shake, yeah. And that has become this kind of big blobulent thing. Yeah, we were talking about Jabba the Hutt, weren't we? As a kind of model for this creature. And negotiation, does it I'm not sure it knows negotiation.
No, it does not. It does not understand the concept.
Yeah, it's like this is and that's mine, and one of the things I was talking to a friend of mine this evening about was the idea that your belief system confers you rights. That because I'm a Christian, I can go out and kill any Muslim that I like because I'm a crusader, and that's what we're here to do, to slice up the infidels. It's my right to do so. And, that's fine unless you're the other side of this thing, whereupon you're looking like somebody who's a complete maniac who will never be stopped and can never be reasoned with. Right. That's what we look like to them if you identify with the Roman perspective, which is our Western world. Right. Roman perspective. And we don't see it, and we wonder why nobody likes us. It's because we believe stuff that makes them bad, and therefore gives us a right to abuse, kill, murder, maim, torture, rip off, mangle, spindle, fold, mutilate, do anything to pure license because of my belief system? How dare you? I mean, really, when you think about it, that is the last 2,000 years. The world has been filled with that attitude and those suffering it. What a horrible place this planet can be.
It can be. It can be because, we still have a tendency to look at the world through only your own eyes, our own individual eyes. And we don't see how others look at us or how others perceive what we're saying. So in that is no check and balance system if you think about it. In other words, I'm just going to go along in my day and I'm going to do whatever feels right to me. And I never think or look at or process what somebody else may be thinking about my actions or et cetera and so forth. And, now we're getting into a whole different kind of a weird area there. Whereas, hey, I'm not harming anyone else or I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just, doing my own thing. But if we're not paying attention to how others are reacting to us and how our energetic signatures are pushing outwards, they affect people regardless. It's called entanglement. Every time you cross paths with somebody, there's an entanglement. You make a connection. You are going to affect other people by the very presence of yourself within a room if somebody else is in there.
Exactly. And that's why I say be harmless, because be harmless is taking all of that, what you just said, and putting it into total practice is that I have no psychic tentacles that reach out from my body to manipulate anything in in this room. And people do this all the time, and, we don't see it because we're not psychic. You probably see that, or have seen that, the way that other people, when do we see it? In the Celestine Prophecy as a film. If you want to see that in action and sort of described in a sort of graphic way. But the idea that, you can be self-contained is that you extend as far as your field, no further, and nothing else penetrates your sovereign field because of that. And that is what harmlessness means on a psychic level. It's like not thinking harm of somebody, because when you think harm of somebody, in some part of your brain, it happens. So on some level, you've created some kind of karma conflict. You've not been harmless. You've created a situation that one day may manifest in your face. And probably the way things are is going to manifest in like not very many days. You can start counting.
Or the minutes, maybe.
Oh, minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to, I think this is what I'm trying to put across, and this is what the Buddha's been trying to say for 2,600 years, is don't mess with the pond. Don't touch the things. Don't pick the flowers. Don't mess with things. Be harmless. Cause no harm. Harm means something that you need to clear up. Like if you do you do your business, you tidy it up. You leave no trace. That is the essence of harmlessness, of making no mark on the path as much as you can. If you do, well, then you have to tidy it up. That's what we call karma. But generally try not to leave a trace in the first place, then you don't need to deal with the karma. And that is how you move from from karma to dharma, which is where you fulfill your soul's prophecy, your soul's purpose.
Well, that's
that
a
make
whole other topic. Well, yeah, it's just a whole other topic there, that you just got into.
It's moving away from Albert, but
yeah,
that's essentially.
It's all good.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. Right. So I did this process with Eva on Sunday night, and when we felt the energy of Albert kind of leaving this place, and sort of moving into a more kind of dimensional place, that he sort of became a happy cloud. And I said, what's your wisdom? Well, give us a piece of what, after all this, what's your wisdom? And all I could gather was like, leave others alone, which is kind of what I just said. So, that, I don't know whether it really happened. I don't know whether it was a dream, a fantasy, a thing, but we were both experiencing similar feelings as it moved through us and we moved through this process. And so, his great wisdom is be harmless. Leave others alone. Stop trying to interfere with other people's lives and fix your own stuff. That's what I've been trying to do. But people keep interfering with my life, so I have to deal with that karma. That's
and as I was listening to you talk, and you were talking about, what Buddha says about moving through and leaving no mark, in the way that this planet and its structure of this planet, and I'm talking about now on a scientific level, from a science viewpoint. What Buddha is saying is almost virtually impossible for a human being to go through this world from start to finish, whenever birth time is to the time that the physical body decides it needs to leave, right? That you would create no waves whatsoever. I don't see that as a possibility to do that, honestly. Because, JP, of the simple fact that you could move through my day and there may be something that you do that you think you are being harmless, but to me, it actually hurts me. But because you're not looking at me, this is what I was trying to get, the point I was trying to get across, is because you're not looking at me. You're looking at life through your eyes only, and not how you affect people as you're harmlessly walking through this world. You actually could be causing harm and not know it.
Yeah, well, I mean, for instance, what people call a misogynist is constantly psychically causing harm whenever he approaches a woman. Psychically, and the woman, of course, can feel it, but can't actually say, hang on a second, you stop thinking that. Because that's invading somebody's privacy. So there comes, we have to, that's why we get stuff coming back in our face. That's why we have karma, because it teaches us that even with our thoughts, we can cause influence in the world. And, we were just listening to Sean's guest about a radionics machine, which is basically a thought amplifier, like the Montauk chair. You tune it in, it amplifies your desire. So you have to focus your desire really, really carefully. You have to do all these things really carefully, and I'm completely sloppy. That's why I don't bother doing this stuff, because I'm so sloppy at doing things. I like to get the kind of basic shape, but kind of maybe I'll sand it down a bit. But that's it. Not much of a putting varnish or painting it, But anyway, I think I've finished my point, I think.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna move back to the beast here for just a few more minutes. And in the original show that we did on this was, I brought up Cliff High, and I'm talking about the day that, according to, his report, he said that at some point the people would storm the Vatican, and the treasures that they would find would be unbelievable, and all of the knowledge and everything that has been hidden from humanity. We're the rightful owners of it. All of us, any of us who wish to know about it. Not everybody wishes to know about it. You see, I think that's the key point. But the fact is that a few have made a decision for the many, that this can only be kept within the certain bloodlines, within the certain structure that we've built here. It can't go any further because we don't want humanity to have this knowledge or this power. Well, truth be known, it's going to happen anyway. It's going to happen regardless. Whether the people storm the Vatican, as in Cliff High's report, or something else happens in another way, to where all of this is going to become exposed and it's going to become available, at least a great amount of it. Maybe we won't ever find all of it, but a great amount of it will be found and will be brought up into the open. All those years ago when I had those visions about that which has been hidden will be revealed, and they were all over the globe with me. They were popping me into these cities and they were showing me stuff, and I was just like on this madcap, planet hopping thing.
Okay, so can you focus on what happened in Rome when you got there?
It was books were being opened. It was massive books being opened and people literally sitting on the floor reading these books. People, not priests, not clergy, people.
Yep. So the people had gotten in there. Anything else? I can feel the elation of, because just to kind of, this is another thing that Albert does, and he steals hope. Hope is an energy.
That's the reason why nobody's ever done it before. Because, it's the fear. The fear is that surrounds that place, that nobody can get in to see anything. Everybody gives their power away going, well, he's the Pope, he's got more power than me. He's this, he's that. He's only got as much power as anybody's willing to give him. And apparently there's a lot of people willing to give him a lot of power.
Well, yes, and other things.
Correct.
There must be something that he can give back. There must be some deal going on. It's probably that you get the benefit of the network. Probably like being on it's, actually being in league with Albert is like being on AOL. Except you don't get the free CDs.
There you go. Well, obviously, there has been a deal that was struck way before the physical beings that are here present now are aware of, and they're just continuing the tradition of following the original agreement as when he was installed there, and the other races that are still kind of controlling that area, and the bloodline. I talked about that a little bit in the very beginning show we did too. I didn't get too much into it, but the benefit is it keeps them in power, riches, control over the people, keeps them in the limelight. They'll never have to go a day without having to worry about whether their mortgage is paid, or if their, car has fuel in it, or, if they have a set of clean clothes to wear, or a meal in their belly. They'll never have to worry about those things. They'll wear jewelry. They'll only hobnob with the, those of, also of power and fame and control, right? That's what it's about. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, period. It just does, right? That's the payback. I'm going to give you all these people. I'm going to keep them as sheep, and I'm going to give you these sacrifices, and I'm going to give you all of humanity to control, and in turn, me and my bloodline will continue to go on and on and on, and we will continue having all the things that we have. And we will maintain our power and control over this, that, whatever it is. That's the deal. That was the deal. Monty Halls, let's make a deal. And that was the deal.
So here we are at the end of that thing. At the tail end, if you like. It does have a tail. It's big, thick and fat and about 4 inches long, It's like its entire fatness has kind of filled up the space, the skin that the tail is, and it's just like a little skinny little spine inside it. Anyway, meanwhile, I believe that we're seeing a decaying creature, a creature that's losing its grip. Now, what we're also seeing is, and this is the horrific thing, this is what I believe. This is making more sense. This is the pedophilia link, because it's about, all right. So we're going back and talk about the whole virgin thing. A virgin is a young prepubic person, either male or female. Mm-hmm. It's the prepubescence. It's right. That's because there's a sweetness and an energy and a love that is just emanated. They've got no choice over it. Children don't do that, unless they're really badly hurt early. But in general, children just exude yumminess. And that's what pedophilia preys on, because that yumminess is then extracted like a juicer. And that energy is released. And that is what the creature feeds on. Can you see how that then expands out into the world doing the same thing and bringing in energy through that network?
Right. That's exactly right.
So that's satanic ritual as well, because satanic ritual is basically to build up a great sense of fear and dread in somebody, and then again to end their life, releasing that chi and loosh, this lovely Monroe Institute word, which is the kind of, which probably ends up as that black goop that we were talking about, that detritus, that waste, afterwards. And maybe the waste is whatever Jabba produces, but it's it's a consumption of something that is not on this level. So something has to be done on this level that releases this other thing. And that, I believe, is the link all the way back to where all of this stuff starts. The pedophilia, the Coneheads, the Jesuits, the Catholic Church, and the tentacles that extend throughout the world out from the Vatican.
So I wanna just make a comment here to what you were talking about when you're talking about pedophilia and all of that. What we are seeing, at least that was something I've been noticing, has been escalating over the past couple of years, where every day in the news there's a half a dozen or more, and these are just the ones that make the news, just the ones that make the news, of an adult being caught abusing or even abusing and then killing a child, sexually abusing them and then killing them, or just sexually abusing them. We're seeing children who are being found in houses by their parents that have been locked up and abused for years, kept as like a slave, a sex slave, and starved and beaten, just like that. I don't know if you heard about that guy last year that had those 3 women locked up in the basement.
Yeah,
they had been in there for yeah.
Yep, Teal Scott. Teal Scott is a survivor of one of those things.
So we're seeing more and more of this coming to the surface because it's been going on forever. It has been. I mean, for as long as we know this has been here. And it's escalating. And the reason why it's escalating is because whomever needs this energy needs more of it just to maintain. That tells you right there that there's a problem. Houston, we have a problem. It's like, you used to pump 10 gallons of gas a minute to keep the thing going. Now it needs 20 gallons a minute to keep it going, and it's still not running at the best peak efficiency. But it can't hardly run any more per gallon because its channels, so to speak, can't handle any more than that. So
it can't eat enough to keep itself going.
Right. Because it's depleting faster than it can maintain itself.
Yeah. So this is again, this is the root,
the beginning of the end.
Inside of consumerism.
Yes.
You see, this is how everything that this creature does, we do.
That's right.
We should see everything about us in Albert. He is like everything that we don't want to know about us as well.
Yeah, we don't want to look at.
Which is why he's invisible. He is somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
Oh man, he must be so sad. Imagine.
He's not sad. He doesn't recognize sadness.
Yeah, that's me being sentimental. Okay, yeah, you're right. So, good.
And I have to keep bringing.
I'm glad I'm over that.
It's very easy to find.
Exactly.
To be sympathetic. Empathy is one thing, but you can't be sympathetic to something that doesn't recognize what you just spoke about. It would look at you with a blank stare like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. That
That does not compute. It's not human. Now, again, it communicates with humans, but on a very different level. It's a very different level, the ones that are able to communicate with it. And there's very few, by the way. So, all of this and it is horrid. Let me tell you, this is horrid. Having this conversation about what transpires on the physical planet because of this thing. And it's not just this thing. Its tentacles reach all across this globe, inside and out, as I talked about in the show with those field of talking heads. And it goes, off of this planet. I mean, it goes back to something off world. It doesn't even, isn't even on this planet. So, that should be the bigger concern, is because we don't continually want any more of this kind of influence. But here's the thing. The thing is that we were talking about right in the very beginning of the show with this Grand Cross and the eclipses and all of that. This is all about new beginnings. This is truly can be the makings of a new humanity by the very nature of you and I and everybody that's listening to this call, we can make this planet in a different manner than what we've all experienced by saying no more Jabba the Hutts or Arthurs or whatever, the beast here. Who are these off-worlders? We're going to bring them forward. We are going to begin now, today, by saying we don't choose the negative. We don't choose the power. We don't choose the corruption. We don't choose that for each other, for ourselves. There's a much easier way of doing this than what we've been doing it. You know, what do wars accomplish except for killing people and making money? Doesn't that feed the machine, whatever that machine is? Doesn't it
This
feed?
is the machine.
Yeah. Doesn't it feed that in a negative way?
Yeah, it's a chi. Killing fields are like a great big party.
Yeah. It has to stop somewhere. It has to stop somewhere.
You know, it's a bit like, you know, an orange juice company. What do you do with all the orange peels?
Well, there's lots of things you can do with them.
It's, you know, this world has been laid waste. It's been eaten by this thing. And you know what it's like? It's like a tick.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a freaking great big tick.
Yeah.
Tick. Tick.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Horrid.
But you know what? But by sitting here talking about it, it's not about talking about how horrible this planet is, because it's not horrible.
Mm.
This planet is a beautiful planet. We have some beautiful human beings that live upon this planet, and other creatures that live upon this planet that we share this planet with. And it truly can be a very, very beautiful place for all of us to coexist together without all this other stuff that comes with it. You know, it's kind of old, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh,
I don't know
this
about
thing.
you, but I'm kind of tired of it.
Yeah, this thing is it's you know, it's like we don't. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen to its orange peel. You know, it's probably gonna lay down and stench there for a few centuries or something. Maybe pour some hydrogen peroxide down there. There's probably some kind of good sort of Albert remover that they can sweep it all up with, and hopefully not pollute the world with it. I just watched the beginning of Prometheus the other day, and there's this guy and he eats this thing, and his body starts, the DNA starts unpeeling, and it goes into the rivers and ends up as a whole planet full of aliens, and that's horrid.
Yeah, you know, when I watched that movie, it wasn't anything like I thought it was going to be. I was like, oh my God, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's telling the similar story, isn't it? That there's a consciousness that kind of manifests itself, and has its own purpose, and it doesn't have the same feelings, and it doesn't have the same carings. It has other carings in its own way, you know. Sigourney Weaver, her character, found those feelings, found a relationship with it, at least.
So let me read something to you here.
So, yeah, go on.
On my website, I have a page for the Elohim, and they wrote this many years ago. And this is what they wrote: "We are the Elohim. We have been and always will be. We are your past, present, and future. We come to tell you that in this time-space that you recognize as life, you have many opportunities to create a world for the future that will no longer hold the negative forces that have resided here in this physical world on Earth. Through letting go of fear, lack, mistrust, and all emotions that make you less than who you are, you can enjoy peace, harmony, and an earth that is again so abundant and teeming with forms of life and beauty, it will make your soul sing. Be not afraid of the times ahead. Embrace this magnificent opportunity. We are the Elohim and we love you.
So,
I want people to hang on to those thoughts.
Mm.
And in those words is a whole picture book. As they said, each word, a whole complete book was created that included scenes from past, present, and future, and how we can bring this planet back to that which it was intended. And we do that through our individual actions, through individual thoughts, and then that goes into the collective, and then the collective goes into the higher mind, and it goes beyond and outwards. And we can affect a positive change. We don't do that because we're mad or angry, because those are negative consumable emotions. We do that because that's what we choose. And the way you approached Albert, the beast, was a choice that was made through empathy and compassion. The way that I approached him when I first found myself down there was not one out of fear, negative, or where's my spear, I want to kill him. It was, what is it? What does it want? What's it doing? It's always out of an objective viewpoint. Not out of fear, because you never know what's going to trigger anything, right? So the point is to not trigger it at all, so that you can see its true nature. Observe it in its environment. What's it doing? Is it something that you can agree with or not agree with? Do you think it's something that's harmful for humanity or not harmful? What's its intentions? You don't know any of that if you go into anything, first of all, with
We're
back.
Hello.
your singing is beautiful. I do not know what is going on, folks, but it has to be those CMEs are just lamb blasting us.
WTF Factor 5, Captain.
OMG.
OMG Factor 7. Well,
All right.
So there you go. So what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, we're talking about Albert. Anyway, or Halbert. You know, I think Hal. If we take the Hal from the chat room and then cross that with a huge overinflated tick, psychic tick, that causes. Oh, and it can also cause the minds. It's got to have some influence on the mind. That when that you are controlled by it somehow. So there's some kind of quantum entanglement that we seem to be not being entangled with for some reason. That's what I find rather interesting, is that I could just like Gary McKinnon, just like walk in. Anyway, that's all.
Well, there is a point where people can do different things, JP, because of their mindset. You have to remember that I was down there many, many years ago, and I was just kind of there. I wasn't traveling there because I requested to go there, or I focused to go there. I just showed up there, and I'm trying to figure out, first of all, where am I at? I didn't even know where I was at. I had to sit and look around and going, and so what is this? What is that? What is this? What is that? And, in those days, I don't think anybody was talking about this thing in the Vatican.
I know. It's like, well, you see, here's the thing. We first started seeing behind the dark world, well, I first started seeing it, I suppose, in the 90s. I started becoming aware of this, and then 9/11 happened, and it just like a huge boil that exploded, and we started seeing all sorts of dark stuff, all sorts of yeah. And then when
yeah, that's true, JP.
and so this is the beginning. It's like the tear in the space-time fabric, allowing all this stuff to come into our reality. This is part of what that alien expression is. The tear in the space-time. This is what's coming through, this kind of filth. Anyway, so we look at these things, and we can uncover layer by layer. And what's happening, so first of all, we started seeing, David Icke started talking about this stuff.
Yeah,
and then we started seeing, and how many years has it taken for us to realize, right at the heart of it, right behind the City of London, behind Washington, behind governments, which turn out to be corporations, behind all of these things, we gradually uncovered that there's, secret networks that go on. It's all run by the Freemasons. Yes. And then the Mafia and P2 and the Yakuza, they all fit in somewhere. And all this, there's Benjamin coming with all these dragon societies into the mix of it. That's what's happening in the East. This is what happened in the West. And then we gradually find out that this network is connected on levels much higher than Freemasons, and they all go to the Bilderberg group. And then we discover that they're all connected to the City of London. They're all connected to the Vatican, and they're all connected to DC, and they all have this single aim, which is to take over the world in a kind of global fascist state. Super state, a Nazi super state. So we eventually form Nazi Earth, which is known as the New World Order. So we see all that, and then we also see that underneath it lives on pedophilia. It lives on human trafficking. It lives literally on suffering of human beings. It lives off the energy of the suffering of human beings. And that, well, when you know that, what else can you do? But you just have to do whatever you can to stop that from happening ever again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, the thing is that, what we're seeing now, all of this is, we're seeing a lot of, by the way, in organization fighting amongst themselves, because everybody here on this planet who thinks that they're running something, really want to think that they're the ones that were chosen to run this planet. And then, other group over there is saying, well, no, our group was chosen to run the planet. And so you really have had a lot of chaos and inner fighting and things like that. There hasn't been a cohesiveness to it to the extent of, all of them unifying and saying, well, we're all just going to, do this, right? Everybody's trying to take control in their own way. And it all goes back into, like one or two, maybe three sources, but it's still off planet nonetheless. The effects and effects are off planet. And all I have to say is that some of these races really don't think too highly of the humans.
Yeah,
they really don't.
It's a bit like agent provocateur. You have a peaceful riot, and you have some police guys who have been told, it's your quota to deal with this riot. Here's all the uniforms and the pellets and the things. And so they send in fake protesters who start trouble, who funnily enough look like policemen in balaclavas.
There you go.
Just a night operation, sir. And they all have this same voice. All policemen all over Britain speak with the same kind of voice, like this. Anyway, God bless you. Thank you very much.
Oh, God
I love
bless
you all,
you.
and
Go ahead.
Albert loves you.
Oh, I love you all, and thank you all for spending another Friday night. Next week is Dick Larson, a really nice guest. JP, thank you so much. Dave, Mike, and all of you people, go have a great, wonderful, glorious weekend. Good night, everyone.